Today, Favero have released version 4.75 of the firmware for their Assioma pedals, which enables auto zero functionality. Now, as power meters are extremely sensitive measuring devices, zeroing is required to remove any residual load or torque in the system to give the most accurate power readings. It's exactly like pressing 0 or tare on a set of kitchen scales. This functionality returns the system to the correct 0 point. To ensure the zeroing of the power meter is most successful in bringing the power meter back to that 0 set point, there needs to be no load on the system whatsoever. This is why power meter companies will tell you to backpedal a few times, leave the cranks at 12 and 6, leave the bike perfectly still before hitting that number. But the unit also ideally needs to be at a uniform temperature. And that's why when I'm testing power meters outdoors, I will take my bike from indoors to out, indoors usually being a lot cooler than outdoors in the hot Australian summer this time of year. I'll need to wait about 10 or 15 minutes for the entire power meter system to come up to a uniform temperature to meet outside conditions before hitting that manual 0. Now, active temperature compensation usually takes care of that if I was to zero indoors first, but if I was to do a manual 0 when that temperature is rapidly changing, it can throw things off a little bit. Now, this is all the more reason to just enable auto zero and forget about it, because usually that will do what I need.
Okay, running through the installation process of this new firmware, opening the Assioma mobile app, connecting to one of the set of Assioma duos here, giving it a few moments to wake up the right pedal, and the firmware update notification will be there automatically on the screen. Flipping over to the firmware tab, pressing update, and letting it do its thing. This takes around 2 minutes per pedal. I am speeding this up for the video. Okay, that is complete. It will reset that pedal and wake up again. Firmware is updated. And because this is a set of duos, it needs to update the other pedal as well. We hit update on that and run through the exact same process. If you're running Unos, there will only obviously be one pedal to update. Okay, and that's all happy. Now from here, I perform a manual 0 just to make sure everything is good to go from this point onwards. And you'll also need to do this manual 0 when you first install these pedals on a bike or switch them between bikes. For everything else now, you can pretty much rely on the auto zero.
Okay, so a simple procedure there to get onto the latest firmware with that auto zero functionality. Now that was performed a little while back in the Llama lab with my set, and they've been working flawlessly since then. They were working flawlessly prior to that too, but there's been no issues introduced with this auto zero functionality. Now if you're asking yourself how the auto zero works with these pedals, well, it's magic. But I won't leave it at that. I do have a little bit of detail here. It'll perform a 0 when there is no load or force on the pedals. Obviously, the bike has to be upright, not laying down or not leaning up against the wall, pressing against the pedal. It will check that the temperature of the system is stable before it does an auto 0, and it will discard any 0 if there's any major swings. Now, those are the conditions that it has to meet before it will do an auto 0. There's a lot more to it than that, but at a high level, that's how it works. I have been in contact with Favero and they tell me they've done a lot of testing on this and they are very, very happy with the results. Obviously they are rolling this out to the public now. More about auto zero in general. Now, auto zero is implemented in different ways depending on the type of power meter in use. Now, spider-based power meters can do an auto zero when there's no load on the system, either when you're backpedaling or you're coasting. There's very few instances though with pedal-based power meters, there is no load on the system. You definitely have to unclip. There'll always be something weighing things down there. So it does require some advanced engineering in how they solve this problem with pedal-based power meters. Side note, I'm not aware of any crank-based power meters that implement auto zero. Before signing off for today, just a few quick notes on this and auto zero in general. The auto zero on this will always be enabled with this firmware update, so there's no way to turn it on or off. A manual 0, if you've done that before you go for a ride or after 15 minutes into a ride outdoors that I do, that will override any auto zero values there. A manual 0 on a head unit is called a calibration on most GPS units. Technically, it's not a calibration, it's a 0 set point reset. So just be aware of that, it's not true calibration. And finally, this firmware rollout is taking place over a 24-hour window. So if you've checked your firmware on your pedals whilst watching this video and it's not there, give it a little while, check again in a few hours and do your updates. Okay, leaving this one here for today. Thanks for watching this one. If you're an Assioma user, remember, check that firmware, check your battery level and enjoy your rides.